When it comes to ballistic battles, the talk about shotgun ammo is always one of them. I've got a pretty basic semi-auto 12-gauge shotgun here, and I've got 3 different kinds of ammos. You know, birdshot has its place in self-defense, especially if you're within close distances. Right now, some people might think this is too far. I'm about 35 feet from a pepper popper target, and I've got buckshot and I've got slugs. But I'm gonna tell you that buckshot and slugs might be a little too much for this distance. Let's see what birdshot does. That's a wicked load. Let's take it back and see what buckshot does. All right, so back here, this is about 18 yards. I'm gonna try a load of buckshot, just standard buckshot. We're gonna see what it'll do. Well, there's no doubt it knocked it down. But I wonder how many of those 9 pellets are actually on the target. Well, 18 yards looks to be about maximum distance. If you want to use standard double-aught buckshot, 9 pellets, trying to keep them on a human-sized, man-sized silhouette target, that's about your distance. All right, so I'm all the way back here at 50 yards, which is at least half a football field. So neither birdshot nor buckshot's gonna do any good from back here. I'd be lucky to get 1 pellet on that target with buckshot from here. But I've got a slug, so let's see how this works back here. "50 yards is no match for a 12-gauge slug."
Pump shotgun is one of the most common defensive firearms choices in the world of firearms training. Now, of course, this one is a 20 gauge, and I'm a big fan of the 20 gauge. 12 gauge obviously has more power, but how much power do we really need at bedroom distances with our family behind us? And isn't the 20 gauge a lot easier to shoot? The 20 gauge is gonna have less recoil. It's a lighter gun. It's the kind of gun that's also gonna be more versatile in terms of letting your family members come out and train with you. And I promise you that when it comes to a full day of shotgun training, you're gonna be glad that you have that 20 gauge instead of a 12. Now, not only is it easier to shoot in general, but it's also gonna be much faster and easier to get that follow-up shot. When we have the shotgun up in our shooting position and we're managing recoil, of course, what we wanna do is run that pump quickly and get that follow-up shot as quickly as we can and stay up there on the target. Now, as you notice, there's a couple of big holes up there from each one of those shots. What I'm firing today is the Winchester Defender round. This is a 20 gauge scored round that actually fragments when it hits the target. So this is actually a segmented slug. As you can see here, it's pre-scored. So those 3 marks break apart. Now that's not what you're seeing there. What you're seeing there is the wadding and the slug. This is one projectile. Now if I were firing a 12 gauge slug, if we look at the difference between a 12 gauge round and a 20 gauge round, if I were firing a 12 gauge slug full power, obviously I'd be a lot slower on those follow-up shots. This lightweight shotgun that I can train with all day allows me to fire these slugs very, very efficiently. And what we're gonna do now is take a look and see how that segmented slug works by firing it into a block of gelatin. Now this ballistic gelatin block is what we use to simulate human tissue so we can evaluate the performance of these defensive rounds. What we're looking for here is for this slug to break apart and stay within that block. This is going to keep us from having to worry about over-penetration like we would with a traditional slug. And of course, this isn't across the bedroom distance. So I've got my family behind me, I'm barricaded, I'm maybe on the phone with the police, bad guy comes in through the door, I come up, I take the shot. Now we're going to assess the situation, make sure the bad guy's down, make sure the family's okay, continue on with that scenario. Right now, let's take a look at what that segmented slug did inside of our gel. Now, I already said I'm a huge fan of 20 gauge. I am a huge fan of the segmented slug, and what we see here is exactly the kind of performance we're looking for. I pull the tape measure out. So I've got about 14 inches of penetration on one segment, 13.5 on another, and 12.5, 13 on the third segment, and they spread out. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, spread that damage out, and you can see that happens very early. So this is from a 1,600 foot per second 3/4 ounce slug out of a 20 gauge shotgun inside of a bedroom distance. And of course, we didn't even have anything here to slow it down, the clothing and things that would normally be there. So this is exactly the kind of performance you want. I'm a big fan of the 20 gauge shotgun for home defense, and I'm a big fan of the segmented slug to be loaded into that shotgun for when you need it the most.